Hi, this is Ted Barlou with Alamo Music Center, but today I'm in Austin, Texas with a very special guest, Aysedeniz from Turkey, currently in LA. And I thank you here today. And this is the one big surprise for me, besides having to do all this. Is wonderful to find out that I actually have an Ankara, Turkey connection.
That's crazy, yeah.
And so welcome, and we are so proud to be here to interview you and to have you show us a bit about what's going on with your South by Southwest performance. And then you actually have a rehearsal coming up, and we're going to try to grab as much video we can so the future for you. And I guess the amazing thing that I liked is right off the bat, you were born into a house that already had a piano.
Yeah.
And just by coincidence and circumstance, it was what kind of piano?
It was the Kawai upright,
there you go.
yeah.
See, so that brings us here to this point today.
Yes.
Isn't that beautiful? But it's your music that got us here. So I want you to talk a little bit about your piano journey.
Yes,
and
sure.
how you started and then where you went through.
Yeah, so I guess both my parents, they're doctors, engineers, and they really loved classical music, but they were not really allowed to do anything creative with their lives because, you know, their parents told them you need to earn money. And so they said to themselves, like, we will let our kid, let our child do whatever she wants that's creative. So it was kind of like an encouragement that I had at a very early time. So my mom, actually, when she had me, she started piano lessons. So she went with my sister, and they both quit, basically. But I was somehow very interested in spending so much time with the piano in the house. So instead of focusing on their own lessons, I guess they preferred to bring me to music in a more like kind of disciplined way. So I actually started giving concerts when I was like 9, playing with orchestras as a soloist.
Wow.
So I won a competition when I was 6. So I started officially the lessons at 5.5. Before that, I kept going to the teachers, and they said my hands were too small. I can't start. So they would refuse me. And then at some point, they were like, okay, fine, we can now start. And after 6 months, I entered a competition. And for my own age, I won it. And the award was like a big candy box, a bicycle, and a health insurance.
Oh,
it was really
should have gave you dental insurance with all the candy.
I got my tonsils removed with the health insurance.
Hey, that was a wonderful gift. Right? It provided for us. I want to ask you a real quick question. How big is your reach right now?
I can reach, 10.
Okay, that comes up a lot, and that's wonderful because they made you wait because your hands were too small.
Yes,
that's great.
My reach is quite good because my hands were so small. I had to do all these like stretching exercises when I was like a kid, and also I'm double jointed, so that was a very tricky thing when I was a kid. Like my hands, like my fingers would go like this. You can still see a little bit, but it took me very much work to make sure these like joints were strong enough.
Strong enough.
Yeah.
Okay, so that brings you to your first performance, and you were somewhere around what, 6, 8 years old is what you said?
So 6 is when I kind of played this like one piece for the competition, and I won. And then when I was 9, I actually gave my first soloist concerto, like as a soloist with an orchestra, playing Bach Concerto, number 5, Bach keyboard concerto. And that was like the turning point, I guess, because from then onwards, I started getting more offers. And started like doing this very intensely so that I would kind of take time off from my school to go do concerts. And
did a major school or university throw down scholarship and attraction or
so there was
recruitment, I guess is probably the right word. They're looking for you to go there so they can...
Yeah, that happened. So, I mean, it happened in many different ways, to be honest, at all steps of my life, because it's always a question to a parent where, like, you know, if you don't know much about music world, you're always considering options, like, am I doing the right thing for my kid? Is this the best place for education? Are people better outside in other countries? Right. And what's their level like? And what are we like? So, like, I think it was a lot of research for my parents to do, and they learned throughout my process about this industry as well.
So your parents threw down these options.
So they were, contacting teachers,
you can do this and this.
Sending my recordings to them, asking how am I playing, and then so what happened was when I was 10, I actually went to Italy. My dad found this piano competition in Sicily, And he said that he insisted, he was like, we need to see if you're actually good. Because when you're in one country, your competition, you might be good for a level, but it might not mean anything.
Let's go
globally.
to the worldwide acid test
yes,
and see how
exactly.
I love
and
that thinking.
he's an
It's
engineer,
great.
so he really wanted the calculations.
Right.
So, so we went there, and I was not attending the competition. It was for me to watch. But what he did there was like, he approached the jury members and asked them, like, can I play for them? Just for their input, right? And then what happened was that they ended up awarding me like a concerto competition, concerto prize, sorry. And then we were very ecstatic. I mean, they were like, my parents like rushed and called my piano teachers saying like, oh my God, this is what happened. Like, she played for this jury. And then, the reaction of the piano teachers were like really opposite of what we expected. They were like, how dare you play in front of other people without our approval? What gives you the right to do this? So they said that they're going to stop.
Right? We didn't know better.
Well,
that's one of them. We came here to find out, how do you do this?
Yeah, right. And then they said they got really angry for me winning that award somehow. And then they said, from now on, we're going to do change your education. You can only play etudes and exercises and no real pieces, which is so crazy.
They want zero expression. They want to see how the mechanics are going along it. That's the one thing is when they teach classical music, a lot of times they want to keep the age and the size of the performer within a certain criteria in literature. If you excel real good, they don't want you getting ahead of other kids or other students.
Yeah, I honestly, to this day, I don't know
I've never understood
what that
that,
was
but
for.
it used to happen a lot.
That's just crazy. I think the cutthroat industry, like the classical music has really weird things going on, I think. I don't know why that is, but there is a cutthroat environment that's really toxic in academia, but there's also teachers want to fail other teachers' students, or they, what I mean? Like there's a lot of that going on, and I really don't like that.
The classical world is the worst music scene in the world for that. Other than the only thing I've ever heard when I've heard of how people and teachers have gone out against other teachers and their students, it's almost as mean as some of those horrific cheerleading stories that you hear about.
I haven't heard of those, but
they're pretty bad in this country. But the classical world, you're not the first one that I've interviewed that I've heard this from. And almost every single one of them, there's just all kind of little problems, and it's all based on who sits on what committee and who's in charge and how they like to do things and how they're going to retrain you from another country and how things are really done right.
Right.
And no one really knows.
To be honest, my experience in the US was amazing. Like I studied my undergrad here, so I'll tell you like a really summarized version of my process.
Super.
I actually, after a year of that, I changed my teacher. We found another one. It was an amazing teacher from Moscow Conservatory. He's from Azerbaijan in Ankara.
Okay.
He was the head of the piano department at the Conservatory Bilkent Music School. And I took lessons from him, but again, we had this kind of, the dean wouldn't let him teach me. So it would be like secret all the time. Like it was a non-official phase.
Right.
And a year later, I got into Horowitz competition, which is in Kiev, Ukraine. And it's like 4 rounds. So first you send a recording, then you go there, audition it live. Then you have 3 more stages. And the concerto round is the very end where you play with the Kiev Philharmonic. And I went through all of those. I passed, and I was the only one without the teacher because the dean wouldn't let him travel to Kiev. Right. So like crazy.
To keep you back, right? Was that an attempt to try to?
Who knows? And so there I was, like literally 11 years old, but the jury members were amazing. It was the chair of Juilliard, Arvardi, who is the Hanover music school's like head, and like he's just like one of the most
the real
valuable.
Heavyweights were there on the chair.
They were, yeah. And so the chair of Juilliard said I should audition for Juilliard because this is like it's going to be a great experience for me. And so I did, and I got in. And then at the same time, of course, my dad had sent my recording of the Bach concerto to Rosalind Turek. Do you know of her? She's basically who Glenn Gould was inspired by. And she, it's a really funny story because her last name is Turek. And so my dad somehow thought it has to do with Turkey, which turns out to be true. They apparently passed by Turkey when they were immigrating to the US.
Okay.
So it has this whole like story. And so he sent my recording of Bach to her. because her CDs were in our golden, what is it, like gold pianists of the golden age or something. It's like this whole collection of people who went into that, like I don't know what label it was on, but it was like pretty important.
Deutsche Grammophon was a big classical one, and then they also had Sony classical.
Yes, I don't know which one now.
Columbia.
I can't remember. But it was a big deal to get into those. I think they selected maybe 100 pianists total in the world that were like influential.
Right.
And anyway, so like sometime later, her assistant replies back to my dad and says like she wants to hear me play live. And she was at the point in Oxford. She was getting an honorary doctorate from there. And so she invited me to Oxford to play for her. So we all went as a family.
That's a nice thing.
It's like, it's crazy. And I played Bach, and she's like, I'm moving to Spain. You should come to Spain. Don't go to Juilliard. I went there. You can always go to Juilliard. And then she basically like, I moved to Spain for her the next year. And to Marbella of all places.
Okay, so I have to ask a question. Are you like an expert in Albanias?
Albanies. You would think,
to
right?
me, the hardest, most impossible music to play on the piano.
Yeah, it's written for guitar. Like
I hadn't even tried to play it on the piano, just reading it.
I love Albanies. I've played a bunch, but I'm not an expert for sure. Yeah,
well, I wanted to ask you a question. All of this classical experience is just phenomenal, and that's led you are a Kawai performing artist. You're a Kawai artist. And what got my attention is I want you to finish up telling me about your classical journey. But I've never seen anyone so steeped in classical music that uses as one key word as a pianist, crossover. So I have my own idea what that means. Yeah. I want you to tell me what crossover is and how many different fields. And feel free to just give us some how your classical becomes crossover artist. And I love that it's Kawai has an artist that considers crossover a big part of the description.
Right, yeah. Well, it's actually really linked to my education. So, I don't have musicians in my family. They all listen to rock, jazz, pop, and all these were my, favorite songs. Like if you think of like Everly Brothers or like The Shadows or Deep Purple or of course Pink Floyd and of course the Beatles and that's the kind of music I listened to growing up, and we would dance to rock and roll music when we had time, it was just like how we had fun, and I think what I had a problem with was that every time, because I was performing at such a young age, none of my friends would want to come to my concerts because I would be playing Mozart, Bach, Beethoven, and they thought it was boring.
Not fun enough.
Yeah, and so I always thought why they haven't even been to a concert? How can they have this assumption, right? And I think it's amazing, and you could totally headbang to Chopin or Rachmaninoff or Prokofiev even, right? That's how I spent my puberty years. So, basically after Spain, I got really, really depressed, and my hair was kind of falling apart because off really, because I didn't have friends there, and I really missed my country and my friends in
Ankara.
Too much.
That's what happens when you think too much. Your hair falls off.
when you're it's
look.
Yes. So it was kind of crazy. So I wanted to go back. So we moved back to Ankara again, and I was trying to connect with my peers, my age group, and all they listened to was Offspring, Red Hot Chili Peppers, Metallica, Nirvana, and Turkish rock groups. And so that was my only way to communicate with them. And while being there, I realized classical is not the only answer, but also I need to be truthful on stage because this is not who I am exactly. I am a really inclusive person. Inclusive, is that? Yeah. I love listening to other music, and why not also present it on stage, right? But so I started slow. I actually started taking lessons from a jazz professor, and he taught me how to kind of basic blues and how to improvise a little bit, and that was the most amazing fun I've ever had, as opposed to classical stress and every note perfect, has to be perfect. So this was the opposite, and it was you just jam, whatever you play, it's okay. And we had so much fun. It was with the college students from the conservatory with the jazz department, which is so cool. There was even a flute player. It was such a weird ensemble too. And there was a drummer, I think a cellist, and it was just an electric bass.
That's what makes college music departments. Hey, we got a guy with an electric guitar, electric bass, a really cool electric drum set, and a dude with a bassoon. Because it's like really, well, you know what I mean? And then like the bassoon guy knows someone with a, more off. And he's like, I got an oboe and a violin friend. And so you have this weird jazz, rock, pop,
I love
classical
that.
stuff.
Exactly, and I love it so much. So what I would do, there's one really funny story. I was playing Mozart Concerto when I was like 10, I think, 10 or 11, 10, yes. And then as an encore, I played Boogie Woogie. Okay, like, let me see actually, like, that's after Mozart. And it was this hit thing. Everybody loved it. And there was a bar owner in the audience apparently, and he's like, she should come and play at our bar, jazz bar. And so he invited me, and I couldn't get into the bar because I was underage, right? But then they sneaked me in from like the back alley, and then I actually played. But like, it was just so crazy. I think I started like whole merger when I was so young because I realized that's my mission. My mission is to like bring people together of all different ages and all different backgrounds and tastes, and anything can be cool. And there's so much cool music in classical. It's not, everybody thinks it's like to sleep, or it's so boring, or it's elitist, and it's high end, blah blah. And so I tried to change that all my life. So basically, I was in Turkey, and then I came to upstate New York after that for college.
So where did you pick up I know you're doing some special presentations at South by Southwest, and that you had mentioned you're playing for the earthquake victims in Turkey. And I wanted to ask you, when you first went from classical music into doing other things, how much classical music did you do on, say, a digital piano, or incorporate other things? And I also noticed that you use technology and computer stuff, and you do whatever you do with your music, and that's really not classical stuff. So how did that come about, and what is it that you do?
I guess, it's a great question. I guess I always loved technology, first of all. We always were really into gadgets in the family. Like my dad would buy like something that's just come out, like a new, I don't know, camera or a new computer thing, like program I could use, or and that kind of helped me integrate it. So first, even though this is not really directly relevant, I had a digital keyboard of Kawai in my summer place, because of course I couldn't go on holiday without practicing.
Right.
I was not allowed. And so in that one, there were demo recordings. Okay. So there was a blues piece, and there was a Chopin Fantasy Impromptu. And I wasn't that good to play it at the point, but I was like, oh, and I would keep playing that, looping it to see, like, to pretend like I'm playing, or like one day I will play, and that's, So that was my first inspiration, like hearing something come out from a keyboard that's really amazing music was like, because some keyboards just play really random things. It's really ugly, right? But that's what inspires you as a kid, as a student. When you press a button and it like shows you the beautiful music that you can create with that instrument, it's amazing, right? It just shows you the end of the tunnel, like the light at the end. So all of that work will lead to that, right? And so that was the beginning. And then I actually started using Sibelius, the computer program, to create compositions on paper. Okay. I'm not on paper, on the computer. On the computer. But like notation.
Well, you can print and pass out parts,
Right. So that was very new. And then I had like GarageBand in my computer afterwards, and I kind of wanted to use that to write pop songs secretly in college, to get away from the classical part. And then, to be honest, my true, real like interaction with technology in terms of production came when I finished my master's in London, and then I actually took lessons from someone to teach me Logic. So that's where I knew, like, where I learned how to record and how to create tracks for live performances. So oftentimes I have a backing track of the orchestra, and then I go on stage, and then I have like an in-ear with the reference track, kind of like a click track almost. And then I play on top of that, and then there is like a visual aspect of it. So I use a lot of artistic designs on stage if there is a screen. So I want it to be a visual, audiovisual experience for the audience.
We're having a lovely visit with Aysedeniz, and I'll tell you what, I'm thrilled here because she's been giving some It's just exciting. We're going to have her do some snippets and some of what she does, I guess, bits from her album that's coming up, and also the South by Southwest performance. And this is really entertaining, so I'm going to be quiet and you take over. You say and do whatever you want. This is really wonderful.
One of the things that people love about this mashup, it went viral, is the Phantom of the Opera and Bach mashup, the Bach D minor piano concerto. And so on the right hand, I'm playing Bach, and the left hand is Phantom. So the right hand is, and then left hand is. So this is how it sounds. I'll do a little bit snippet, yeah? That's like where the theme comes.
Wonderful.
And then I'm doing a Turkish folk song, actually. I've arranged it. And this is for the earthquake survivors. So I actually started a project to support the survivors with music therapy. And it's called Help in Harmony. Me and a bunch of my friends and colleagues that are amazing. They're based in the US, and we're connecting music therapists in the UK, in the US, to the earthquake zone, and also to the local volunteers there. So it's essentially a huge thing that I've started, and I hope to succeed at it. But I'm performing this to raise awareness and to raise funds for this. So this is how it goes. And you might know this from other songs, actually, because it's in many cultures, the theme. So it's like, actually, let's do it. That's the theme
Beautiful
of it.
Thing.
And actually, it's a positive, hopeful song, folk song, but I've made it more dramatic to kind of to portray the agony, but also still keeping it positive. There is, let me think, what else am I playing? Oh yeah, my own compositions.
Okay, let's hear it.
Yeah, so
that'd be
this is
wonderful.
called Chaos, and I'm literally premiering it at South by the day before the release of the single.
Oh, great.
I'll play a little bit. It starts with just a repeating note. So, and then it goes on to this like more melodic part. That part is like kind of like Batman style again. You know, I love that part.
Wow.
It just gets really, and with the orchestra, it sounds really cool. So I'll be actually playing it with a backing track. And so that's kind of how I also merge technology on stage there. Yeah, I don't know if you want to hear more or not, but I'm playing classical. So
I want to hear just a little bit of this Pink Floyd one, because that kind of got my motor going when you mentioned that, especially with the Liszt rock star. And I thought, man, that's a great show right there. Liszt was the greatest show. And then you've got the Pink Floyd Light Show, which everyone knows is the greatest show, the ultimate rock star experience. Let's have a little bit of that one.
Okay, I'll play for you. Normally, I actually use the strings inside the piano, but I don't know if I'm allowed to hear. I don't want to mess up. I did hear that, you know, it's a sensitive thing. So in this case, I'm not going to use the string part, but normally I like use the strings.
Gotcha.
But I'll play for you the other parts then. goes like that. So it has
It's
a lot
really-
of romantic parts, and there's like a whole string part. And the point of this is that Liszt used the piano as an orchestral instrument.
Right.
He's transcribed a lot of Beethoven's symphonies, for example, or operas, to the piano, using it as a whole new way, and I try to portray that. So like using different parts of the
really
piano, but then
wonderful.
also keeping it classical, so that it's and it also is inspired by Inferno, Dante's Inferno.
You had to think that one out
Yeah.
before you sat down and played it, right? I mean,
Yeah.
wonderful. Hey,
I should
thank you very much for that.
Thank you.
I really enjoyed your little snippets that you played, but I have to ask you, how did your mashups come about? I mean,
I guess like I really, since that mission, I had to, I wanted to merge people, like connect people from different genres, backgrounds. I thought, why not like try? So my first project went viral. This one is my Liszt style, like Lisztian style Pink Floyd arrangements.
Okay.
So first, I actually was celebrating the 200th anniversary of Franz Liszt, who's the Hungarian composer. And when I read about his story, he was a rock star. He's the inventor of the piano recital.
With bigger, better show
This
than
is the
Pink
reason
Floyd.
why we play like this, like to the audience. Whereas before him, people like the pianists would be in their back, right? And so he wanted the drama to be there, his face to be part of it, and so I was like, how can I actually play something for him that really resonates with his character today? And so I thought, rock would be really good. And then I was like going around like and then I thought, oh my God, that's like, this is great. I could connect this one. So I just literally started like creating a fantasy of Pink Floyd's songs, the 3 songs, in the style of Franz Liszt. And that was kind of like my master's project that I invented.
So I'm starting to think that crossover isn't so much your music crossing over, it's your making music to get a crossovered audience.
That's so true. Well, also because that's how I connect with people from different, like even my family, right? And like if you don't talk the language, how are you going to communicate? Right. And I think it's like learning a new language and then like mashing it up, kind of. And I thought it was really fun because it's not new. Like classical music has always used folk tunes. Like Mozart would improvise on folk tunes. Beethoven would. They would like have so much fun, but that kind of disappeared.
Yeah, the fun in classical music disappeared in the last 100-something years, didn't it? Hasn't it? It's kind of strange.
That tradition, is just is lost somehow. Now we treat it as if it's like a museum, thing. But it's not. It was not the case. So that's why I do the crossover stuff. And now I actually, for example, merge something that the audience knows already with something they might not have heard before.
Well, they may seek out what they haven't heard before to see. Just to test the integrity of your ideas, like, well, she played Pink Floyd in the style of this guy. I sort of know this guy, and he's pretty. I'll go listen to more of him.
Yeah, exactly.
So
they sent me messages saying like, we've never heard of Liszt before. Thank you so much.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, is there anything along this style that's coming out on your new album? I found out you have a new album coming out next month or week.
Actually,
or it's soon.
This week is the first single.
I knew it was real fast.
Yeah, exactly. This week is in 2 days actually is the first single, and then another single, and then the whole album after that. So we're just spreading it out a little bit.
So what do I hear on your new album?
It's all original, to be honest.
Really?
Yes, it's all original, my music. I think what I realized is that after playing other people's music for so long, I wanted to have my own voice. And of course, it's inspired by all of the things that I've listened to and worked on. And this album is basically the first time that a real orchestra recorded my originals.
Wow.
So it's a 22-string.
Oh, this is thrilling for you.
Yeah.
This is a big thing.
Yeah. And also I think it's a lot more challenging and more stressful to see if people are going to like my music, and are they going to come for me or are they going to come for a cover? You know what I mean? Like a
Right. Well, now you know they're coming for you, right?
Yes.
Because it's original.
It's like, I think that took me a while to kind of step into.
Well, you got to grow some backbone to do that. I mean, you may have. I'm sure you've had the talent. I'm sure you've had all the skill and all the desire for a long time. The one thing you haven't had is the confidence to go out there with something, your name on it, and someone saying, oh, that's you. It just, whether it's a good, bad, or indifferent, or even an acknowledgement, it's like when you put your name on something and you said, this is what I made in terms of writing, and this is my name. I always think of what Quincy Jones told Michael Jackson. And Michael said, hey, what about this? What do you think about that? And Quincy said, it's your name that goes on it. If you like it, that's, or you don't like it, your name is on it.
Exactly.
And so
yes.
that takes a lot of bravery.
It does.
From any musician, no matter what level of I mean, just for any person, really, to stand up in front of an audience. What's tough about recording is that audience is privatized. They're at home, they're listening, they're thinking stuff to say to you.
Yeah.
It's not like they just get the performance and go, great.
Yeah, exactly.
They're thinking, man, that's like really, someone put a lot of it, and they listen to it again
Yes.
and again and again. So
they're the intelligent, active listeners
well,
who are very
it makes you critical of your own self.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I'm inspired by film scores a lot. I
Oh,
live
that's
in
my
LA,
favorites, yeah.
and it's like it has a lot of romantic string sounds. It's like a 22-piece string orchestra and piano, so it still focuses on piano as the main virtuoso aspect. But then there's this whole thing going around, and the first piece is called Chaos, and then there's more coming out where I layered pianos, actually layered different pianos.
Oh wow! Mm-hmm. I am so excited to listen to your album.
Thank you.
I really am, and I'm so thrilled to have this opportunity to sit and visit with you. Thank you again for joining us with Aysedeniz. This is Ted. You can find us at Alamo Music Center. Look for us online. Continue to watch our videos, and please fill this with more listeners and positive, encouraging comments about this interview. And Ayse, I have to ask you, where can I find you in terms of on the internet? Because I want to listen to stuff, I want to look for your charts, and I want to watch what comes out in the future. So where do we find you?
If you just search AD Pianist, those are the capital letters of my first name, AD, piano, pianist.
Right.
AD Pianist. That's my hashtag for all social media, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook.
Super.
And then my website is adpianist.com. It's very simple. But then also, if you forget that, you can also just search for Turkish pianist, and I'll be there on Google.
Are you like the top Turkish pianist when I come up? Because it really...
I'm the second one.
You're the second?
Currently in the Google search.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for watching. We're going to look for you in the future, and we'll look for you in the future too. Thank you very much.